Hey, what up? This is John Delony with Ramsey Network. I'm with a pastor in my neighborhood, and we are modeling what listening looks like, what submission, being quiet looks like. This is Dr. John Fajan, and brilliant, kind, lots of experience, and you're very generous, and so I appreciate your time you spent with me.
You're very kind.
So we've talked about my neighborhood and the sidewalks my kids run up and down on, right? And the way my neighborhood shaped and shifted and moved that led to some of the things we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We've talked about you as a dad, what your parents did to make sure they nurtured your heart growing up, and the things you and your wife are doing for your kids. So now I want to pivot a little bit, and I want to be the universal white guy, right? So for those of you who aren't teachers or professors, it's common that there may be one Latino guy in the classroom, and the professor will say things like, hey, what do Mexican kids think about, right? That's just kind of a normal thing that underrepresented groups experience all the time. So in this moment, I want to flip that script and say, on behalf of all white people, I want to ask Dr. John, I want to ask you a couple of questions that are just floating out there in the space.
Let's do it.
Okay? And I only want you to speak on behalf of your experiences and your heart.
That's all I have.
Cool?
Cool.
So, number one, I keep hearing everything about systemic racism. It's the system, man, right? I grew up on Rage Against the Machine. I've heard about system for 20 years.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What are you talking about?
When you talk about systemic racism or systemic oppression, another way to use it, to term it, is structural racism.
Okay.
That there are baked within systems already established outcomes.
Okay.
All right?
So you're telling me that before the game even gets played, we already know who's going to win?
Already done.
Okay.
Rigged.
Okay. I like that word, rigged. Okay.
From the jump. African Americans arrived in this country in 1619.
Okay.
Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in 1863. Most folk got it around 1865. You know the Galveston story.
I know Galveston.
Yeah. So 1865, all slaves are freed.
Okay.
But they start with nothing. Mm-hmm. They have built a country that they do not own anything in.
Right.
And slavery in legislation or freedom in legislation does not mean de facto freedom.
Okay.
Right? So you're dealing with folks who are freed, but who have nothing, who have to start over. And then there is a group of folks who don't want those slaves freed. In fact, they fought a war to make sure they wouldn't be freed. So you've got folks now who are free trying to figure out what the American experiment means for them.
Okay.
But they are still under the systems that were operating in slavery.
So does this analogy work? The game of life is a mile, and people who look like me, the gun went off, we got to take off. And we are 800 meters, we are halfway down on this mile. And then they turn to folks that look like you and say, ready, go. And I may be running, saying, hey, we're all running the same race, everybody. You're free to run too. But I had an 800 meter head start.
You don't just have an 800 meter head start. You don't have any hurdles.
You
don't have any puddles.
I got people throwing rocks at me.
You don't have any
either.
mud. You don't have weights on your ankles
or traumatic baggage on my backpack.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when I say systemic, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about structural, the way the system is set up.
Okay.
We're designed not to succeed. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, paint me a picture of a baked-in.
Absolutely. In America, the number one means of wealth accumulation is home ownership.
Okay.
That's documented.
Yep.
Home ownership is how you get started, particularly in African Americans, in African American communities. It's the number one way to build wealth.
And to transfer wealth, right?
And to transfer wealth.
Okay.
Then tell me why in America white Americans, white families, are 20 times wealthier than black families. I'll tell you why. Because things like in 1933, when the Fair Housing Administration was founded by Hoover, even VA loans from persons who were coming back from World War I, being able to apply for loans. African Americans were restricted. African Americans didn't have the opportunities to apply for loan or to even qualify. And if they did apply, they were rejected. Then when they tried to build homes, there were restrictive covenants put in place in particular communities where black folks could not live. Let's talk about redlining for a moment.
Okay.
Where if I'm coming to appraise the value of a home or value of an area where black people live, the property values are lower. It
compresses the value, huh?
You get a D rating and a C rating. In white areas, you get an A or a B rating. In fact, if black folks moved into white areas, the ratings went down.
So what you're saying is, same block, same bricks, same builders, same pool in the backyard.
Yes.
On this side of the street, because of the color of the skin of the people living in those bricks, same bricks, the rating gets better.
Yes.
The house value can go up.
Yes.
So that when my parents are 80 and they move to their retirement home and that house transfers to me and my sister,
Yes.
we sell it and it's tripled in value.
Yes.
We take that money and buy our own houses.
Yes.
Or we use that money to put down payments on our bigger houses.
Yes.
And so it goes.
Yes.
And then across the street, because people who look more like you live in these same bricks, same houses, they get a lower rating.
Yes.
So the loan values for these appraisals can only cap at this much.
Yes.
And so it goes.
Yes. Then add in just what we would call social determinants. High unemployment, low access to health care, mass incarceration. These elements begin to set the perfect storm for these distances to increase, not decrease. Let's talk about pandemic. With that, a little bit more tangible kind of
What's this pandemic you're talking about?
This pandemic we're talking about, coronavirus. Right. It's not by accident. It's not coincidence that African Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population, but we make up 30% of COVID-19 deaths.
Why is that?
It's because of what we call social determinants of health.
Because the way I've heard it painted by the universal white community, again, I'm making this up, don't leave me in comments, is because people in the black community aren't adhering to social distancing as well as they should be.
That's cute.
That's right.
That's very nice. It's a very liberating perspective for the person who looks at it and wants to not see systemic stuff.
Okay.
But the systemic reality is this. Public health folks will tell you this, that there are social determinants of health that exacerbate the disproportionate impact on African Americans. So it's not just that we're not adhering to social distancing. Well, it's hard to adhere to social distancing if you live in public housing. And you got 4 people living in 500 square foot space. How do you social distance?
Right.
If I don't have access to food in my neighborhood, food deserts, I don't have access to healthy food, then my body is already underprepared to fight off immune issues. Furthermore, I can't afford PPE, protective measures and protective equipment, masks and those things. We do a food pantry at our church every week to address food insecurity in our neighborhood. And folks come over from public housing, they don't have masks because that's not the priority right now. The priority right now is eating.
Eating, right.
Right? The homelessness population, predominantly African American. Mass incarceration, predominantly African American and Latino. Well, how do you quarantine in prison? Can't. So it becomes an incubation spot.
Right.
So public health folk will tell you, we say it this way, when America gets a cold, Black America catches pneumonia.
Okay.
Because whatever happens to America, there is a disproportionate impact because of the conditions and the systems already set to turn it up, to turn up the volume in those communities.
As a guy who studies mental health, one of the things we've talked about during the pandemic is the higher your stress level goes, the more overactive your immune response becomes, the sicker the better chance you have of getting sick.
Sure.
And so what you're putting out there is, if you live a baseline of I'm hungry, or a baseline of I'm working 3 jobs and this is the best that I'm capped out here.
Yes.
Every day, your immune response is going to make you more susceptible to getting sick.
Absolutely. We also constitute most of the essential workers. Right. So there's the high level of exposure because we're on the front lines. We're the Uber drivers. We're the delivery folks. We're the working in the grocery stores. We have the lowest paid, but the highest service in jobs. And so you're not going to pay me an affordable wage to make it, but you expect me to show up so that you have what you need in a pandemic.
So we can make sure there's food to be on the Whole Food trucks that are getting shipped out by Amazon.
Right. But I'm the one who has to be loading it. And I don't have the option of not loading because I got to eat. My family got to eat.
Right. Huh.
So do you see the systems that kind of intersect and create this? This is important because faith communities, we love to do what I call charity.
Okay.
Charity is responding to a need. Well, charity's great. Jesus says the poor you'll always have with you.
Right.
You have to respond to needs. But there's another step beyond charity. Charity we have to do, but the step beyond charity is justice. Justice is not a political term, it's a biblical term. It's a Christian term. It's found in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Jesus talks about it, prophets talk about it. It's everywhere.
That's the sound of a mic dropping, by the way, but go ahead.
It's everywhere. That's not a political term. That's a theological and biblical term.
Right.
So charity says, person is hungry, we ought to feed them. Justice says, why is the same person always hungry?
How far up the river can we go?
Charity says, we gotta, we really gotta minister to those who are in prison. Justice says, why does everybody in prison look the same color?
Okay. In my world, they call that advocacy. Yeah. Like,
how do we get to that place?
Right.
So going up, digging a little bit deeper to find out that there's something baked in here that makes it that way.
Okay. So universal white question number 2. Don't all lives matter? Why do you get a black prom and I don't get a white prom? Why don't we get white lives matter? Why do you get a special life that matters?
Great question. When we say Black Lives Matter, it is not a statement that all lives don't matter. It is a statement that Black lives have to be given attention to because they are the ones under attack. So when I hear all lives matter, what I hear is this whataboutism that persons are not willing to, as you have modeled and spoken of today, listen and sit with and explore the experience and the exposure of persons who have been marginalized. Black Lives Matter is not an assertion that no other life matters. It means that this life matters too, but it's been ignored. Here's my example. When I was in elementary school, probably about 3rd grade, we were all sitting and reading, and our teacher was reading to us. We just finished snacking a few moments ago. Came and said, this had to be maybe 1st grade, maybe not 3rd.
I love snacking.
We're snacking. We're snacking. We have a break, and then we come to sit on the mat, sit on the carpet, and the teacher's gonna read to us. While we're reading, man, one of the kids, one of my classmates, starts choking. He didn't chew well, his grapes, and one is lodged in his throat. She stops reading, she drops the book, runs over and performs the Heimlich on that kid, save that kid's life. Did all the kids not matter in that moment? No, all the kids mattered, all the kids were important, but at that moment, there was one who was choking. And so that kid demanded and needed the attention of the authority in the room.
Right.
Now I can't sit and say, well, she didn't come check on me.
Right.
I wouldn't choke it.
Like, hey, teacher, my life, what about?
The one in distress is the one that gets the attention. When there is a fire in the neighborhood, fire trucks don't show up and spray water on every house. They spray water on the house that's on fire. It doesn't mean that the other houses don't matter.
Right.
It just means at this moment, they're not in danger of death. They're not in danger of destruction.
Clearest and most lucid explanation that I've ever heard. I'm grateful for that.
I hope it makes sense.
Why do I, as the universal white community, automatically hear that as an indictment? Why do I hear that as an exclusion term instead of a hand-raising term?
Because of something called privilege.
Okay.
Privilege is this space that I live in where I have always been the majority.
Okay.
And I've always been given the attention. And I'm always the one listened to. And I'm always the one given opportunities. I'm always the one given exposure. And I'm always the one provided for, cared for, and taken care of. Well, when I live in a place of privilege, equality feels like oppression. When I operate from privilege, always having the attention, always having the resources, always being the voice,
I get to make the boundaries. I get
I
to make
get to
the
set
rules.
the boundaries. I get to set the rules. You can get intoxicated in that space
Right.
if you never frequent other spaces where you're not the privilege, not the majority. So then, when a situation occurs where someone else gets equal or even closely commensurate attention that you are used to receiving, it feels like you're being oppressed, but it's really equality happening. But equality feels like oppression when I function and operate in privilege.
So if I go back to your elementary school classroom, this is common if you hang out with little kids. When little Billy's getting the Heimlich maneuver, and they call in the teacher's aide, and they call in the nurse, and all three of those teachers kneel down to make sure Billy's okay, it is absolutely to be expected that the other first graders, real quick, are going to start getting itchy.
Yep.
Start causing a little bit of us because they want that spotlight back.
Some will even say, I'm coughing too. Some will even start choking imaginatively.
My daughter will do that. She'll come home and say, hey, my stomach hurts.
Since you're here, come check me out too.
Okay.
Trying to get the attention back.
Okay.
Because when I live in a place of privilege where I'm always the one that sets the conditions, when I have to share that space, if I'm not used to sharing that space, it feels like I'm oppressed.
It's like the 10th time on my own show I haven't anything I had to say after that. I love it. Number 3, universal white question. Number 3, what do I do now? Neighborhood friend of mine who works like 3 streets over from where I rent my house.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
I've heard that question quite a bit.
I imagine every white friend you have is calling you, emailing you,
Text
texting
message,
you.
DMs, calls, you name it.
Yeah.
What do I do? And I know where that comes from. It comes from a place of feeling a bit guilty in this moment and trying to do something. I would caution doing before you sit with and wrestle with.
Right.
There's something to be said about being contemplative and thoughtful and observational in this moment. What can I do? That's exhausting. That's an exhausting question for folks who look like me right now.
Because I'm asking you to solve my problem.
Because everybody's asking me to decipher, interpret, and translate right now. Here's what would be a much more desired response. Not what can I do, but hey, John, here's what I'm doing. Here's the approach I've taken. Help me to see if this is, help me to see if this translates into something that'll be effective. And now, not only am I not the one who has to answer and solve the problems, you've owned that in your space, you've got influence, you've got agency, and that there's something you can do. Not, man, what do I do? But here's what I've decided to do. I'm gonna march and protest, and I'm gonna take some of my friends, and we're gonna show up and not lead it, but follow Black leadership in this moment, and listen and respond and be present. and use our privilege as a space and an opportunity to help move this movement forward. Those conversations have been very fruitful. Those interactions have been very fruitful and affirming in this moment, because they really show us that there's hope. That there are really folks who want to get engaged, who see the issue, may not know how, but are willing to put themselves on the line to do it. As a black man, as a black person, I am not responsible for your education. I'm not. I'm not going to own that. You have to own that. I got a book list that I can give to you to help you start. But I don't have 2.5 hours every day to help walk my white friends through what's going on. There are books out there. Okay. History tells the story. Don't ask me what can you do. Show me what you are doing.
What do you tell the universal white person who is now so nervous to say the wrong thing, to do the wrong thing? I saw the last week kind of a outpouring. You and I were talking off camera. I've never seen a collection of white people so invested in learning more. Yeah. I've never received as many calls as I have for books.
Me neither.
For text. I've never received that. Hey, can you, like, my wife was looking for some books on the shelf this morning, and she's like, where? And I was like, I gave them all out. They're all out. What do I tell? I saw an influx of things on social media, which was met with almost an equal fervor of, you didn't say this right, you should have posted it this way, you posted it on the wrong day, you're just doing this so you can get attention and follow. Like, we're just in this weird imaginary ecosystem, it's taking on its own thing.
Sure.
And so, what do I tell someone who looks like me who's saying, I'm gonna sit this out, I'm gonna not do anything because I don't want to do something wrong. I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to act in the wrong way, because I can't afford the misstep.
Well, for me, that is an indication that you've not created and cultivated relationships with people different from you already. Because if I'm in a space where I'm already in relationship and connection with folks who are different from me, then we've already had some of these conversations
for years
of what to do, what not to do. Or if we haven't had the conversations, I have the relational capital to be able to have an honest conversation and get guidance about how to do it. Or I just sit back and pay attention and see, what my black friend, I should have black friends, right? I should have brown friends. I should have people who don't look like me in that space. So I can sit down and get and learn from them and figure out, man, how do I stand? And one of the ways to stand is just solidarity. You don't necessarily have to be right all the time to be present, right? I don't have to necessarily say something in order to be in solidarity and be in support.
As a pastor, I know you go, just as the nature of the job, you go to hospitals, you sit with people when their grandparents have died or when their young child lost their life, whatever. Yeah. It's been my experience in those moments that often saying nothing and just presence, I'm just gonna sit here with you, is that's Jesus at the well, right? He didn't say a lot, he just showed up.
It changes the game. But I also know it takes some time to get there because we live in a culture of doing.
Just talking and doing and solving, yeah.
Right, we live in a culture of doing. We gotta do. And if I don't do something, if I don't produce something, my value is determined by what I do and produce. My value is not determined by who I am. And
I don't have any more microphones to drop, but that's, yes.
So that culture creates this angst. Like we don't like silence. We don't like simple space of presence, of being with. That, if I don't do, then I'm not effective. In this moment, presence means everything. There are folks who are showing up to protest who live in suburbs, who don't live in the urban areas. They're white, right? But they understand their privilege. And you're seeing the videos of this stuff. One of the things, the beauty of this moment is that the revolution is social mediaized. It's televised, right? We're seeing the stories and the anecdotes of how folks with privilege are engaging and enabling folks without privilege. I've seen white protesters, white participants in marches show up and wrap themselves around black protesters because they recognize already that the police responds differently to a white body than they do a black body. And so in essence, they put themselves as a barrier to protect those black bodies that may not be protected otherwise. That's an example, right? In other spaces, it's just walking with, it's standing by. And protests I've been to, protests I've been a part of, it's multi-ethnic, and it's incredible. It's a sea of multi-ethnic humanity that is standing with, not standing with, not speaking for. Standing with, being present, being active, allowing their faces to be seen, knowing that there might be some consequences to their face being seen in this space, and they don't care. That's powerful. Presence.
Man, I could talk to you all day.
Man, it's been rich. I won't say it's been fun.
No. And I want to, number one, I know you're exhausted. I know you gave up time that the only thing on earth that sums zero is time, and you don't get back. And this time we've had these last few videos have been at the expense of your wife and your kids and your church, and so I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
No, I'm grateful to be here to have this conversation and to be in a space where we can just be honest.
Right.
I think this models maybe for folks who are watching, but even models for me. The space is how we handle and manage the privilege we've been given. In America, you would be interpreted or translated as having privilege. But there are spaces that I go into where I'm given privilege, where I'm the privileged one. I'm the one paid attention to. And the same modeling that you have given today is the same modeling I have to give.
Wow.
It's the same kind of space. Privilege is portable, and it really is determined by the cultural ecosystem you walk into. You're privileged as a white man. I'm privileged as a black man in spaces where black women are not valued. Right? So as you have elevated a voice that perhaps folks may not hear if you had not given that platform, I got to do the same thing. And so thank you for modeling that for us.
Well, thank you for honoring me with the conversation. I'm going to strongly recommend, challenge, whatever you want to say, go back and watch all 3 of these videos and then watch them again and then watch them again. And I hope they're uncomfortable. I hope they challenge you to be quiet. I hope they challenge you to listen. And I hope that overall, whether this is with your partner, with your kids, with your coworkers, if somebody says something, you see something, you experience something, and your first thought is, no way. Why is that? Let that be the moment you be quiet and you lean in and learn more and seek to understand somebody else's heart. Not to impose your rightness, not to impose your facts, not to impose your intellect. Just listen and be with. Be with. You're a gift. Appreciate you. And I hope this isn't the last time you and I hang out.
Absolutely not.
I'm not going to record any more of these. We'll record some more. It's Dr. John Delony with Ramsey Network. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.